Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tampere. My name is Reinhard Lafrenz. I'm the Secretary General of euRobotics, and I would immediately like to hand over to Bernd Liepert. Dr. Bernd Liepert is not only the President of euRobotics, but he is also the Chief Innovation Officer of the robot manufacturer KUKA. Please, Bernd.
Good morning. Dear Minister Berner, dear members of the Finnish Parliament, dear representatives of Tampere University of Technology, dear representatives of the European Commission, dear Juha, Heikkilä, dear Lucilla Sioli, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear roboticists, welcome to the European Robotics Forum 2018 in Tampere. Even more than last year, robotics has been an omnipresent topic in the media and continues to become more and more a part of our daily life. This relates to both our working and our private life, in combination with other technologies, especially with artificial intelligence, and many technologies that enable these developments, such as cloud technology, 5G, and big data, which seems to be obvious nowadays. However, mechatronics, new materials, and battery technology are key to not only have virtual assistants, but robotics technology which can truly support us in the future. The societal challenges are enormous. We need to rethink the structures and processes in many application areas. The whole healthcare sector with many different tasks such as hospital automation, surgery, rehabilitation or elderly care and home care is a good example for a wide range of applications that will support us hopefully in the near future. Therefore, the ERF 2018 chose Robots and Us as its motto. Robots and Us implies that we need to put significant work in topics such as safe human-robot interaction on the technical side, but also raise awareness about the offerings of modern technology to a wider public. A broad spectrum of workshops will cover technical and non-technical aspects of robotics during the next 3 days. But there is also a socio-economic aspect. One of the challenges for Europe is to create sustainable business infrastructures to make best use of the potential of clever European brains and the exciting landscape of companies of all sizes. Therefore, innovation, transforming research results to actual products and services, is key to our future. Digital transformation, not only of industry, needs communication and cooperation within the technically oriented robotics community and with all stakeholders, end users, component suppliers, politicians and policymakers, the wider public and the media. It's essential to communicate facts, shaping and promoting the image of robotics in a positive way. In particular, the SMEs, there are many opportunities, but they need support being an integral part of the business ecosystem. As you know, the worldwide robot density in the manufacturing industries is permanently increasing. For professional and domestic service robots, an annual growth rate of more than 20% is expected. About 1/3 of these companies is located in Europe, and we have a strong startup community. To stimulate these developments, the European Commission is driving the program Digitizing European Industry, by setting up networks of digital innovation hubs as well as platforms and pilots. DG Connect, which deals with digital industry, makes huge efforts to create a pan-European network of digital innovation hubs in robotics. An inspiring field where I'm happy to work in. As in the past, the forum is meant to be a place for discussions, mutual exchange insights in technical and non-technical topics, and a sort of family meeting of the whole robotics community in a wider sense, including end users, policymakers, investors, and all kinds of other stakeholders. With more than 900 participants and 51 exhibitors, the forum has again broken a new record, which allows discussions in 7 parallel tasks over the next 3 days. I wish you and all of us a bright future, a robotics future, fruitful discussions and inspiring forum, and hereby open the European Robotics Forum 2018.
Thank you very much for the opening words. And I would now like to immediately hand over to Minister Berner, the Finnish Minister of Transport and Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to welcome you all to Finland and to Tampere especially. I'm very happy that euRobotics has taken the meeting here to Finland, and I'm also glad for our local association to support this and also arrange for the hospitality and the commitments towards robotics. I think for everyone here, it is clear that we live in the middle of the 4th industrial revolution. Robots already support the common routines people have. They fill in gaps in works that is repetitive or requires extreme precision. Picking fruits and milking cows in farms, cutting lawns and cleaning the house, but also precise surgery in hospitals. The Finnish government has an aim to ensure the development of digitalization, automation, and robotics in the future. The key thing for us has been to create the best possible enabling environment for this development. One of our tools to support the growth has been the resolution on intelligent robotics and automation that has taken us to recognize the importance and possibilities related to robotics and automation in Finland. Furthermore, the aim is to increase the use and development of robotics and automation in the entire society, and to make sure that it's not only a privilege of the individuals, but also something that benefits the structures of our total community. Together with Finland's artificial intelligence program, guided by the interim report, Finland's Age of Artificial Intelligence from the steering group, we will promote the development of our digital skills and the digital single market. The fundamental building blocks towards automation and robotics are within this work. We believe that the front row position of societies in adapting to new technologies is the best way to guarantee that the development serves both the growth and the development of businesses, as well as the common good and the development of society as a whole. Enabling has gotten us started, but it's not enough. Moreover, we must constantly map and execute measures to overcome the obstacles that still keep our industry holding back in their investments. We have a clear vision for our future environment that produces, develops, and extensively uses intelligent robotics and automation and meets many challenges. For instance, such as those related to healthcare services, but we still lack clarity in the vision to get us there and concreteness in those measures that we need to take. Ladies and gentlemen, robotics and automation are in the core of the digital single market and data economy. Robotics and automation walk the road paved with data. One of the reasons that hinders development at the moment is the uncertainty that relates of the evaluation of data in possession of individual companies and scattered into thousands of individual systems and servers. I encourage everyone to take the risk. Data that is not shared is not benefiting anyone. Data needs to be combined with other data and then refined and enriched with knowledge to create value. The biggest obstacles are not technical and they are not legal. What I believe we all need to do is to open our mindset to the huge possibilities of utilization of data, artificial intelligence, and automation and robotics to begin to take small steps and preparing us for the leap. Unless there is certainty of adequate amount of open and shared data, there will be no space for developing and investing into smart engines, artificial intelligence solutions, and B2B tools that accelerate development of robotics. The European ecosystem in robotics has managed widely to benefit on the open source development, and more than 2/3 of all service robot suppliers use open source operating systems such as Robot Operating System. I might have said this earlier already in Finland several times, but I still want to raise this. The telecom market benefited widely by the standardization cooperation on the NMT and GSM solutions and the decisions of the major companies to cross-license the critical patents and to allow interoperability. Today, we do not question the global interoperability of mobile solutions. The cumulative development and exponential growth of telecom and digital market as we know it today was built on the principle of non-discriminatory access. And this has also been our message here and hopefully also today to you. We hope that you are willing to share and seek for cooperation. The cake that is shared will be big enough for all of us. Worldwide professional service robotics sales has gone up by 24%, where industrial robotics have increased by 16%. This according to the International Federation of Robotics 2017 statistics for the year 2016. The growth is expected to continue with two-digit numbers yearly, and that what is surprising is that in the service robotics, most of the sales already come from the small and medium-sized companies. This tells that expertise is not limited to the size of the company, but on the ability to combine and apply multiple technologies into specific solutions. Another obvious conclusion from the statistics is that with the expanded connectivity and capacity with broadband mobile networks, sectors such as agriculture and logistics now benefit from the same possibilities that have been prevailing condition for development of industrial robotics already more than a decade. The future growth possibilities is therefore closely binded to the development of the future networks and connectivity. Robots can only go as far as there is connectivity. As I'm also responsible for the sector of transport, I raised an example of an area where the old work methods must quickly adapt to the new kind of operating culture. Automation, digitalization, and climate change are the three megatrends for transportation. We see almost weekly reports from the transportation sector on new tests that are related to automated vehicles. It is obvious that the range of new pilots has increased notably during the past few years. In shorter time than we expected, we will have automated vehicles among our traffic. When we look into the future, automated transport, the use of data, and data security are important tools to ensure traffic safety and flow of traffic, as well as mitigation of climate change. It is commonly known that the spread of the service economy and the digitalization of transportation enable reducing emissions. Automation of transport is a good example, but the solutions we build on the technology agnostic and work in the fields, roads and factories, as well as under the sea, all the same. We should therefore avoid getting too narrow-minded while seeking solutions. In addition to traditional robotics-related expertise, we must ensure sectoral development and renewing processes to allow the utilization of robotics. This is essentially relevant, for instance, in healthcare, where humans work in very close connection to robots. It is important that we bear in mind that we can't cope with development of robotics and automation with policy tools only. But furthermore, we must work together with other sectors to achieve our common goals. Many fears and threats are connected with intelligent robotics and automation. Our aim is to reduce those fears and make robots part of people's and enterprises' everyday life. There is no silver bullet for a rapid change in people's attitudes, but I think increasing people's trust is at the core of future development. Building trust is much more than just preventing and controlling threats. It is a great chance, but also a challenge for governments and industry to put our heads together and figure out how to provide more trusted and secure digital services for the whole of society. The development of artificial intelligence is a good example on opportunities of digitalization, but also on our common challenges. When algorithms and artificial intelligence control everyday services, such as transport and healthcare, it will become crucial to protect these from unauthorized or harmful use. Privacy and security needs need to be built inside algorithms and artificial intelligence by design. We must ensure together that the use of algorithms and artificial intelligence should benefit the citizens and never act against them. Digitalization and robotics require changes in mindset from both the public and the private sector. We are, for our part, ready to create a framework for change, but the responsibility for implementing lies with the companies. When we look into the future, we will see more robots that work alongside humans who can survey their environments and learn from their experiences. Technology will change the nature of work, but also they free resources for the development of new value creation and businesses. Further progress will rely on entrepreneurs taking up disruptive technologies and deploying them for new applications and markets. This also calls for advanced investments and bold decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a program ahead of you that is filled with different kinds of angles of discussions alongside these themes. I hope that as many of you are willing to step outside of your comfort zone and look from a different perspective and from several different angles at the theme of robotics. Every time, and even when we are discussing artificial intelligence and robotics, knowledge and understanding is created in networks of professionals, but also along every one of us that has the chance to participate. I do hope that you have interesting discussions. I do hope that you have the good possibility to learn more, and I wish that you have a very successful event here in Tampere. Thank you.
Minister Berner, thank you very much for your presence here and for these opening remarks from the Finnish side. It was a great pleasure and an honor to have you here. Thank you again. The next point is a speech by the director Lucilla Sioli from Directorate A of the European Commission, Directorate A, but unfortunately she cannot be with us in a physical presence, but nowadays we can also do it kind of remotely, so we recorded a video and this will be presented now.
Good morning, my name is Lucilla Sioli. I am the Director for Digital Industry at DG CNECT of the European Commission, and I would like to welcome you to this European Robotics Forum 2018 in Tampere. I would like to be there. Unfortunately, I had previous commitments, But I send you this video message because I would like to recall a couple of important discussions that are taking place in Europe right now and that I hope can fuel and feed your discussions in Tampere in these days. First of all, I wanted to highlight the fact that in Europe we are talking very much about developments in artificial intelligence and that we will be tabling an initiative by the end of April. My colleague from DG CONNECT, Juha Heikkilä, is there and will tell you later about the main challenges that we want to address with this initiative. But I would like to highlight that we will always talk about the importance of robotics in the development of artificial intelligence for Europe and how the strength of Europe relies on a strong European industry for robotics. A second line of discussion that is very interesting for you for the months to come concerns the new proposal of the European Commission on the framework program for research and development. The Commission will table its proposal for its budget for after 2020 by the end of May. But the bad news is that there is one country which is leaving the European Union and that is going to put downward pressure on the budget. But the good news is that the framework program for research and development should not be decreased and that artificial intelligence is playing such an important role in our political discussions that I am convinced that we will find important support for that field of activity. And it's in this line that I would like to ask you in these days, if possible, to reflect with your colleagues, with the public-private partnership, about the future of the public-private partnership and the possibility of finding synergies also with other public-private partnership. The Commission would like to simplify its ways, would like to reduce also the large number of PPPs that we have. The robotics PPP is a very important one, but we look forward to be able to have this partnership work together with other partnerships on important fields like artificial intelligence. My colleagues from DG CONNECT are there if you are willing to have more information about the future, and for the moment I wish you a fruitful days of work and I look forward to receiving the feedback from your conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So after this remote message, we come to a live message from Juha Heikkilä. I think he is happy to be in his home country again. He is the head of unit of DG CONNECT, the robotics and AI unit. Please, Juha, the floor is yours.
Good morning, honourable member of the Parliament, representatives of the universities in Tampere, chairs and members of the organising and programme committees, president and vice presidents of EU Robotics, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I have to say that not only am I in my home country, I'm actually in a former hometown of mine. At a very tender age, so tender that I can't even remember, I actually lived in this town for a short period, about a year and a half. Nevertheless, I did get to, in that short space of time, I did get to actually appreciate some of the aspects of this town, like its great passion for things like ice hockey and theatre. And in many ways, I think Tampere is a great place to have this. Also, as a follow-up to the previous one, which was in Britain, in Edinburgh more precisely. After all, this place is sometimes called the Manchester of Finland. Also, there is a sort of link to Scotland through to the economic history of this city. Therefore, I think it's quite a nice sort of thematic link to that. However, on to the topic of this event, robotics. Most of you, or at least many of you, will know that the European Commission, the European Union through the European Commission has been investing significant amounts in robotics, cognitive systems and artificial intelligence. In the so-called 7th framework programme, that amounts to as much as 550 million euros. And we have now in the current Horizon 2020 framework program already invested well over 300 million, we'll be investing more this year. For our part, as was mentioned by my director in the video message, a key vehicle for this has been the public-private partnership in robotics Spark, which has been the context within which we have invested the amount as part of our commitment to this partnership, in line with the strategy that has been developed together in that partnership with euRobotics as the representative of the robotic community. Now, this investment has borne fruit. We have a vibrant community in Europe. Academia and industry are working together. Results are gaining maturity, and they are working to the benefit of our citizens and economies. And this robotics forum, the European Robotics Forum, is a great manifestation of this. In fact, it's instrumental in this endeavor to break down silos and bring together a strong integrated community in Europe in this field. It has been a major achievement. If we look back 6-7 years, the situation was very different. Those of you who will remember the first couple or three robotics forums, the situation was very different. Now we have attracted more and more people all the time, more and more use of robotic technology as well. This is also shown, reflected in the much greater attendance number, as pointed out by Dr. Liepert. It's been steadily increasing from year to year. And this kind of an achievement is well in line, perfectly aligned, in fact, with the European Commission goal of ending fragmentation in this field and having a strong unified voice in Europe in robotics. And given then this integrating aspect of the forum and the fact that more and more use of technology are brought on board, there could not be a more appropriate theme for this year's forum than robots and us. And in line with this theme, there will be discussions on many different aspects. Technological, what is feasible, what is possible, what is safe. Financial, as was mentioned by Dr. Liepert, how can this technology be put to use, how can be actually commercialized, how can it actually be made to help citizens, how can businesses actually put these things on the market, very important aspect as well. And of course then, last but not least, by any means, the societal aspect. So, we will be exploring over these days how robotics and artificial intelligence can improve the well-being of citizens, be it in their homes, at their workplace, be it in their private lives or in their professional lives. It goes without saying that this cannot be done without broaching the ethical and socio-economic aspects of robotics, and these will be, of course, discussed over the coming days. This is, of course, very timely, and as you will have been aware, this is very much at the heart of the debate currently in society on the technological side. How is this technology going to impact us? Will the progress of this technology help us, or will it affect us adversely? Will it relieve us of dangerous tasks, or will it actually have a major negative impact on our jobs? Will it liberate us to fulfill our dreams, or will it encroach on our freedom more generally? And again, this is very much in line with what the EU has as its goals, because we want to have sophisticated robots and AI-based systems which help people in various different ways, which make their life safer, which make their work lighter and less dangerous, which make our resources last longer and which burden the environment less. And we also want to have informed debate. We want to have a realistic understanding of what these systems can and cannot do. And this leads me to the point that was mentioned by my director, the rumors that the Commission is preparing an initiative on artificial intelligence are indeed true for once, and the aspects I've mentioned previously are also very prominently featured in that strategy that we are going to put forward later in the spring. So, in a nutshell, in that strategy, we will address three different facets, if you like. We will be addressing the research and industrial capacity of artificial intelligence. We will be looking at the socio-economic aspect of this, so the job effects, the employment effects, the changing workplace, the changing skills landscape, the skills impact, all of that will be also addressed in that. And the ethical and legal implications of this technology, particularly as concerns data privacy protection, liability and safety, but also more far-reaching ethical aspects. So those will be covered in that. And as was pointed out, I would like to highlight in this company that it is important to understand that for us, robotics and artificial intelligence go hand in hand. Our European strength, and we want to build on our strength rather than try to play catch-up. We want to build on our strengths, and that strength lies in what could be called embodied artificial intelligence. So robotics, sophisticated, intelligent, autonomous robotics. This is where Europe has always been strong, is still strong, and we want to see Europe getting stronger still in this area. We cannot simply afford to rest on our laurels, however. We have to move forward. And we have to be able to make sure that we can shape this technology and we can do it based on our values and on our conditions. Because we want to make sure that we can use and deploy these systems safely and that there is trust in these systems, that we have the right balance between innovation and protection. And for this reason, we also want to have a broad engagement of the stakeholders, not just the robotics community, be it industry or academia, but also the civil society. And therefore, we are also planning to set up an expert group which will help us steer the discussions and give us feedback and engage the public in these debates more. As I said, we have great great strengths to build on, and we will be building on them. And the robotics community is at the heart of this. And as was pointed out by my director, the public-private partnership plays a big role in this, and that has enabled us to look to the future together to see where the strategic lines are and how we move forward from here. And although we haven't called the things we have been financing before and involved in before, we haven't always called it artificial intelligence because no one called it artificial intelligence. That term wasn't particularly useful. That has always featured prominently in our activities. So, that basically to sum up where we are in that respect, as was pointed out and highlighted by our director. I would like to add one element to this still, which is the digital innovation hubs, which is a concept which we use then to propagate this technology, to make sure that it is more easily available, because one of the goals we have is also to democratize this technology, make sure that businesses, particularly small businesses, will be able to take advantage of this technology, make use of it, put it in as part of their products, get services to help them to implement it. And this, of course, is all part of our bigger initiative, digitizing European industry and the digital single market. So what we do in this area, in robotics, is very crucial in supporting the Commission activities in a broader political context. And we do it through our work programs, through our policy work. And it is a very coherent whole, and this is a very significant piece of the puzzle and a key, because robotics is a technology which drives the digitalization process of our economies. So, having said all that, I merely want to conclude by saying that it's a great honor for me to be present here and to be able to welcome you to this conference on behalf of the Commission, in addition to my director. And I would like you to take the opportunity, use these 3 days here in Tampere to make sure that you have a very broad picture of things, you follow those things which you're interested in, and I wish you a very, very stimulating and inspiring set of exchanges over this period here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juha. Thank you very much for this opening from the European Commission side. But a forum like this would not have been possible without the strong support and the tremendous amount of work which was done by the local community here. And I would like now to give the floor to two representatives of the Finnish community. One first, Jyrki Latokartano, if I pronounced it correctly, representing the Robotics Society in Finland.
Thank you. Dear members of the Parliament, presidents, honored guests and fellow roboticists, I would like to warmly welcome you all to Tampere, the robot capital in Finland. You can challenge me why later, but it's pretty close to the truth. We've been working quite a lot to give you the surroundings, and I think it's at the moment looking good. We have, as said, over 900 participants from all the continents except Antarctica, which is slightly difficult to reach, and over 50 companies. For those of you who this is the first EU Robotics Forum, I challenge you to see and listen to the sessions, take part, discuss, interact. This is not yet another scientific seminar where the professor talks in the front and you listen. Well, the professor talks in the front here as well, but you can ask questions, you should challenge him, communicate, and then continue the discussions during the breaks, enjoying the lunches, coffee, seeing the great exhibition with plenty of companies from Finland and abroad. Of that I'm especially proud of. Finland has a strong history in industrial robotics. Our trade balance in robotics has been positive for over 3 decades. Buying the components, we add some of the Finnish engineering intelligence and then we export it. We have some of very global players also present here in mining, factory automation, testing robotics, heavy welding. So it's a strong history. Even Nokia used to make robots back in the days, believe it or not. Arranging this conference, we try to provide you the best possible surroundings to enjoy the company of others, have discussions. We did have some challenges with the weather. You know, in Dutch they called it the Siberian bear, and then in London it was the beast from the east. We had also a name for it in Finland. It was keskiviikko. That's Wednesday in Finnish. But now it's slightly better. We have rain, we have snow, we have not hopefully hails, maybe some sun, but also freezing weather towards the end of the week. But what can I say? Please try to cope with it. Enjoy our evening activities, sauna, the dinner, all the excursions. You can contact the registration desk if there is still room on those. Do use the application which is used in first time. You have all the program information, contacts, everything there. I hope it's useful for you. And well, this year marks the 35th anniversary of the Robotics Society in Finland, and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate it than having you all here with us to enjoy the European Robotics Forum 2018. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jyrki. Our next speaker is also representing one of our partner co-organizers. It's Pauli Kuosmanen from Tampere University of Technology.
Dear members of Parliament, presidents, members of the Robotics Society. Tampere University of Technology is very proud and happy to have this opportunity to participate in the organization of this distinguished conference. And why we are so happy? Because we are so devoted to robotics. We are the leading university in the field of robotics in Finland. Why I say so? We have many facts behind that. So we have a full robotics major for our students, and they can continue to deepen then their expertise in a number of other topics. Oh wait, so this major is a generic one. We have a very new RoboLab, where the students really can have their training and exercises to be done. Altogether, we have some 12 professors working in the field of robotics in 3 different faculties. And of course, all of them, they are having their own research infrastructure. But we don't want to keep where we are at the moment, so this is a bit of advertisement at the same time for some of you, but currently we have 9 tenure track positions open in the field of intelligent machines. Most are very fitting to this theme of robotics. We are facing a number of technical challenges by these professors. Many of them have been already mentioned here, so just I mentioned briefly a couple of them: software-defined robots, intelligent collaborative robots, cobots, robots working with humans, how to improve navigation, how to improve exploration, creating new materials for robots, like smart materials which can add new capabilities to robotics. This AI link to robots, this is very, very heavy and hot topic also for us. One critical aspect is how to develop expensive and at the same time long-lasting batteries, energy harvesting systems, and so on and so on. So a lot of technical challenges are addressed. But as has been already mentioned, so we need also to address the socio-economical challenges, business challenges, new business models, ethical challenges, etc. But we are also in Tampere in a very fortunate position with regard to that, because we are currently in the middle of the merger of my own university with the other university, Tampere University, which is a multidisciplinary university. And together with them, we can tackle these challenges, to combine our expertise with their expertise, whether we are talking about political sciences or education or ethics like philosophy. So I'm very optimistic that this merger will be very, very beneficial for the future of robotics as well. Then a particular problem or great question for us at the university is how to educate the new talents. It's easy to predict that there will be a talent race. We already face it. The speed of the development of technology is just increasing all the time, so how really to train the students that they can then stay in the working life tens of years afterwards. And new credential systems are coming to place. Thus, the universities will not be the only one giving the credentials in the future that the companies will accept. We have to solve all these problems. But I'm very optimistic. Every generation of universities or the people leading at the university have been able to find the solutions, and we will find also solutions for these questions. One thing which is really clear, that we have to really deal with all these complex concerns with society, education as early as possible. And I truly hope that also the legislation is quick enough to address these questions. I really also warmly welcome you to Tampere. So in Hedenborg, I promised that all of you can get the chance to swim in the icy lake and to have a sauna. And with a little help from Russia, I can keep the promise. So enjoy your time here, and this will be a very productive conference.
Thank you very much, Pauli, for the introduction from the university side. And now I would like to give the floor to Thomas Pilz from Pilz GmbH, who will give us his personal view on robotics. And I would like to hand over now the microphone to him.
Danke. Oh, den Klicker brauche ich, glaube ich, damit ich weiterkomme, oder? Wonderful. This is the first thing about the difference of a human to a service robot. A service robot would link up to the communication system and start the speech. A human needs to hand over technology so that you can actually be in interaction with you in this wonderful auditorium. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for allowing me to hold the keynote at this impressive setting. I think coming to Tampere is definitely a highlight of my year because of the hospitality of our Finn host, because it is a European event to talk about what is my favorite topic, robotics. So my keynote comes from the perspective of a person that since 1997 has been working in industry standards, namely on the safety side. Hence, my structuring is, how was it before 2004? What I call the sinfall of 2004. What happened until this year, and what opportunities do we have? And last but not least, a little bit out of my normal terrain, looking into the future. Oops. So, most of those of my age would probably agree with me that the favorite service robots were developed by George Lucas, famous C-3PO and R2-D2. Now, that was 40 years ago, and I'd like to come back to my childhood heroes a little bit later in my presentation. But look at them for the time being and memorize them. Those are service robots. So what happened in industry? In industry, we were determined to give human labor a stronger partner to do work a human could not do. Now, strong machines usually present hazards to the operators working with those machines. Hence, we developed industry standard to make sure that the workers interacting with what is called an industrial robot do not get harmed. No? Now, what happened in 2004? Something unheard of. Professors wanted to join industry standards. I mean, they're supposed to be teaching technology, but really, do they have a place in industry standardization? Then they were from Asia. We at Standards said, well, you know, before we listen to you and what you call service robots, we're really occupied to move forward with industrial automation, and maybe you form your own standardization under the roof of ISO. That's from a safety point of view what I call, if you don't listen, you have a sinfall because you create a second world. And that was what is now being called service robots. The problem from a safety point of view is that a different understanding of safety developed in those sectors. And what were those sectors? Medical robots, personal care robots, robots used in building and construction, agricultural robots, robots used in the common public. I had an argument with a dear colleague from the medical sector, and he said, you know what, you industry guys, because for whatever reason, they think that I'm industry. Our patients are terminally ill, and if our robots kill one, then that can happen. So go away with your safety. My reply to that dear colleague was, where's the problem? If an industrial robot destroys a workpiece, that can happen. And if we can agree that a workpiece is what the patient is for you, we should agree that the machine should not injure the operators. Your operators are doctors and nurses, ours are technicians. In the end, there is a lot in common from safety, and we shouldn't go for payload as a differentiator or the sector where it's going to be implemented. Currently, it is this way, and the problem is that a well-designed service robot may not necessarily be able to be used in an industrial setting, and a well-designed mobile industrial robot may not necessarily be allowed to work in a public setting or in a healthcare setting. So therefore, we do have to face those consequences of separating markets where technology is cross-market. Yeah. So up to 2018, what happened? We had to realize that the established definitions of robotics got hijacked by the public. Nowadays, because robotics are the most wonderful topic to talk about, our old definitions don't really hold anymore, especially since we had artificial intelligence come to play. So there's an argument, can a robot reside in a virtual world? A virtual world normally is, for a human, a TV screen in which you have objects working. We call that in industry the shadow. We're talking a lot about it in engineering because it can give us additional engineering time, or reduction, better said, of engineering time, and we feel that a robot can definitely live there. Now, in ISO and IEC, where my standardization world lives, this has been recognized that there has been a wild growth in standards. So IEC first established a group of which I'm happy to be a member of, called ACAD, to restructure the IEC side of robotic standardization, ensure that we don't do overlapping work. Because standardization is volunteer work. Usually you meet the same experts at all of the meetings, and all of a sudden we have to do everything twice or 3 times. Same in the ISO world. A study group 1 has been established to give suggestions how to better organize ISO standardizations of robotics. And this is where, in my opinion, we have the big chance to come back to the times before 2004, where there was a uniform safety standard for robots of all payloads and all tasks. Am I hopeful that it can happen? Realistically, not this year, hopefully within the next 5 years, because standardization, you talk about 10, 15 years time frame. And with the technical evolution, with the pressure from the market, I'm very optimistic that we will be able, within IEC and ISO, to restructure the way how we standardize the topic robotics in order to have synergies rather than overlapping. Now I'm coming back to my childhood heroes. In the first one, it's R2-D2, and in my opinion, a European successor of R2-D2 is the KRobot 4, which was developed at the Fraunhofer in Stuttgart. As you can see in the one picture, it may be a technical assistant to a maintenance repair technician who has all the data of the machine that he needs to repair and a nice companion to hand him his tools. On the lower picture, you have a doctor who is being supported not by a nurse any longer, but by a driving terminal that gives him the data of the patient so that he can see when he visits the patients what are the next steps of the medication. And by the way, it carries also a tray with the appropriate pills, which have been before automatically been sorted by a pill sorting robot, which I would call a pill sorting machine. But that's a different topic, what you call it. Now, what makes service robots better than industrial robots? If there is a better. In my opinion, the most driving factor for service robots is artificial intelligence and the way how a human can interact with the machine. An industrial robot needs to be programmed and it does repetitive tasks. And if the environment setting changes, you need to have a programmer that understands the proprietary language and reprograms the machine. This is counterproductive. That's why even in industrial robots, artificial intelligence and the way how you change the program of the robot is heavily affected by what's been developed in the service robot industry. A human needs to be able to interact with a machine intuitively like a human would interact with another human. By no means does that make the robot a human. Even if it looks like a humanoid, it is still a machine, but I have a different way how to control the machine. And I think this is a very important point when you talk about artificial intelligence and deep learning. We must not make the mistake to play God, to create a better human. We must stay what we are, engineers that make a better machine. And this is where the topic of ethics comes in. It doesn't affect the machine, the robot. It affects us, the engineers, that design the algorithms. What are the ethics that are behind our engineering geniuses? This is the question to be asked. What algorithms do I program, and what kind of a machine do I want to have? Do I want to continue the path, which goes to Schlaraffia in the end, where the robot replaces the human? Or do I want to go to the path which goes to a vital society, where the robot is an equivalent co-worker? And that, to me, is the future of robotics. If we can create co-workers at equal strength of a human, which can assist the human, we can keep the most important thing to society, and that is that a human can contribute, that a human is needed, and that a human can better work. And let's take the printing industry as an example. Books. In the beginning, there were very few. There were the monks that they were writing them down. Then you made apparatuses where you could write 5 books at the same time, because you would lead with your pencil the other pencils. Then book printing was invented. Then a little jump, the typewriter. After the typewriter, the personal computer to make us better. Now, possibly, service robots like we see here to do our work. Now, looking forward, I think we all must watch sci-fi, and a lot of it, read sci-fi books, because 40 years ago, we had 3 CPU, and then French company Aldebaran developed the Pepper together with SoftBank. It created the 3 CPU successor, which can speak all the languages and can tap into knowledge bases that a human brain can't always produce. But in the interoperability with it, we really have a good thing. The next thing is, and I hate to say that in Europe, I look towards Japan when I go to the healthcare robots, and when I go to the society, how it's actually open towards robotics. Also, Germany's pride now being a Chinese company. And it shouldn't be that our European up-and-coming startup companies are only there to make large Asian companies better. We should do a better marketing, and I think euRobotics is the place where it can start, to prepare our society for the goods of our products, and then to strengthen what Europe has always been, the hotbed of the better machine. We're running in the danger of selling out what really made Europe strong, and that is the better machine. So with that said, I want to go to where I hope that 40 years from now, I can be supported by. And these are all those developers of exoskeletons, of healthcare robots. In my vision, 40 years from now, there will be a different way of assisted living at your own home with the help of robotics. and with the time of the still needed care personnel for what I really need, and that is personal attention. Can't always be granted by the family members, because nowadays we live in a global world, and my child might be living in a different country within Europe or the world. But I will be able to communicate with it. I will be able to still walk, and should I have a grandchild, but not being strong anymore, I would have the assisted of an exoskeleton to still hold it. And with this said, I think robotics can bring dignity to old age, a different way how we can experience old age. And I look forward to see at this conference what's new out there. But I want to close with a saying that my mother told me, and it's from a German writer named Erich Kästner. Da ist nichts Gutes, außer man tut es. There's nothing good except you do it. And with this said, I want to encourage everybody that's presenting for the doing afterwards, and I look forward how I will be living 40 years from now. I wish everybody a wonderful time in Finland, and thank you for the time for my speech.
So, thank you very much for your inspiring speech and the very personal and emotional words, especially at the end. It was a great pleasure having you here. And now I would hand over to our next speaker, who will also be the moderator of our panel, which will be the final part of the opening ceremony. And this is Tomas Hedenborg from Orgalime as the association, but also he is the group CEO of Fastems. So, please, Tomas.
Do we have? No, we have sound. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak and to moderate the panel. I would like to just spend a few minutes in exploring the big picture, if you like. Pretty much exactly 1 year ago, the State Secretary for Finance in the then freshly established Trump administration, Steve Mnuchin, made a statement saying, artificial intelligence, robotics is not threatening one single American job in the next 50 to 100 years. Artificial intelligence, AI, well, if there is AI, then there has to be something like NS, natural stupidity. Because, of course, automation, artificial intelligence, robotics is threatening jobs, is destroying jobs, but at the same time creating the competitive edge for businesses to compete in the global marketplace and be the winners and creating new kinds of jobs, new kind of quality. My second point is that we have to be very careful in building on our strong legacy. We need to remember that the manufacturing industries are at the very core of the well-being society as we know it in Europe. I make you demonstrate this with a few figures just from Finland. Mechanical engineering industries and metalworking industries in Finland employ some 140,000 people directly. Add to that the indirect effect, then 500,000 people get their living from these industries. When you then add the children and the elderlies, then 1.5 million Finns and their well-being is directly linked to the manufacturing activities. When you multiply these numbers by 100, then you have roughly the size of this impact on a European level. So my point is, when we are applying artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, we need to remember the legacy and we need to build on the strengths of this legacy. Some time ago, McKinsey published a report on future of work and the impact of automation. They looked at the automatable jobs with existing technologies. So technologies already available and existing today. They came up with a figure of 1.2 billion jobs that can be automated with existing technologies. If you look at this only in the US, so getting back to what this famous guy told 1 year ago, 51% of the American jobs can be automated with existing technology. The categories of jobs is collecting data, processing data, and doing predictable physical things. 51% of the jobs can be automated, and that represents a total monetary value of something like 2,000 billion US dollars. Out of those 1.2 billion jobs that I just mentioned that can be automated in the world, 1/3 of those are in China. About 15% of those are in EU, US, and Japan. That's the number of FTEs. If you look at this through the money, 25% is in China, 25% is in EU, US, Japan. My take on that is that the driver for automation and robotization in China will be the demographic change, which is radical. The driver for automation in the developed industrial countries will be the business case, the dollar, because you simply cannot resist the attractiveness of the business case. The demographic change in China forces China to robotize because there is simply no other option. GDP and GDP growth is driven basically by only the amount of work and the productivity of work. And if your amount of work is decreasing, you have to compensate by automating and increasing the productivity. So a huge tsunami of automation and robotization is hitting the world. My last point, and coming back to what we heard from Juha before, he made some comments on the public-private partnerships and public funding of research and innovation and upcoming Framework Program 9. If we want to build the kind of impact and the kind of position for European industry going forward, then we have to insist on not only maintaining but increasing the public funding in true public-private partnership instruments that is driving market and industry-driven innovation. This has to be a key point for the upcoming Framework Program 9, continuing the path that Horizon 2020 has been setting, but strengthening the impact, despite the challenges that Brexit, for instance, is bringing. But we have to stress this and make our point here. So, those would be my opening or introductory remarks, and I would now like to call for the panelists to join me on stage. Three of them you have already heard speaking here. So, Juha Heikkilä from the European Commission, DG Connect. Please, Juha, if you would join me here. Thomas Pilz from Pilz GmbH, please. Bernd Liepert, President of euRobotics and coming from company KUKA. Please, Bernd. Then we have Jyrki Kasvi, a Member of Parliament in Finland. Minna Lantz from the Tampere University of Technology. And to complete the set, Marketta Niemelä from VTT, Finnish RTO. So with this set of panelists, we really have a very broad coverage from policymakers, industry, technology providers, research community, academia. So we should be able, without any bigger problems, to improve the world remarkably during the next 30 minutes. Would you agree with this challenge, dear panelists? And you'll be the judge of if we are successful with that. So, opening up this, we would first start by addressing the issue of how society should be prepared for robots. We heard remarks regarding legal, regulatory issues. We talked about societal impact, ethics, and quite a broad scale of things impacting. And if I may ask, start with Juha, I have to say I do not envy the policymakers that now are sort of designing the future framework in which we should have competitive, innovative industry. You have the societal changes, you have the individuals that need to be sort of protected at the same time, not causing roadblocks for industry to innovate. How can regulation and regulators be rather the enabler than an obstacle for innovation?
So that is, of course, a complex question, but I think the key there is to make sure, as I pointed out in my opening speech, that we have to find the right balance, strike the right balance between innovation and protection. We see the legal framework, and I should point out, for this audience it's perhaps obvious, but for some people out there, particularly after the European Parliament resolution last year, people perhaps had the misconception that there is a legal vacuum in this area, which is not the case, as most of you will know. The thing is, we see the legal framework also as an enabler of innovation. So if it's a predictable environment which lets innovation thrive on the one hand, but gives then the right level of protection to the users of this technology, to citizens at large, then it fulfills its purpose. Now, this is obviously easier said than done. It's easy to say that we should achieve this, but I think we have a number of elements, because we talk to the people who are dealing with this technology on the one hand, we are talking to the people who are experiencing this technology, and the better we actually manage to gather the sort of input we need in order to have the right elements, that way we think we can then achieve the right balance. I would like to point out that given the kind of rapid progress, or at least the perceived rapid progress, which is not always the same as the actual realistic progress out there necessarily, I've at least seen that in many cases the general public has a somewhat unrealistic set of expectations concerning what this technology can do and cannot do. But if we have this perception of very rapid progress, which is unsettling, scary even, then this could lead, in the worst case, to a backlash. And this is, of course, something that would not be very helpful to us at all. So the kind of elements we gather, we want to make sure that we have an understanding of what's going on there, what is going on the technological side, what is feasible, what is coming up in the near future on the one hand, what are the concerns of the citizens, what are the legal issues involved. Sometimes they are very, very complex actually, and then discussing these, debating these, having the expert input, we then try to arrive at this position where we have the right balance, as I said. We sometimes use the phrase smart regulation for smart systems, which kind of, I think, sums it up nicely to the way we want to achieve it at the European Commission level.
Thank you. If we then sort of would turn to industry and the technology providers of whom we have two very, very famous and advanced ones amongst the panelists represented. What are your sort of biggest fears when it comes to regulation and what regulation could do to harm, or if I just sort of also take the other part of the question that I gave to Juha, to enable? What would be your, maybe if we start with Bernd, since you also have a presidency of euRobotics as well as your position at KUKA, please.
I think there is no reason to be in fear of the regulation, because we benefit a lot from the collaboration between academia and industry, getting all these technologies in place. And if we take a look on all the wonderful IT tools and the artificial intelligence-based software tools, I think it's important to double check how it works if it's coming together with a robot. Because if you have a system, for example, on your fitness band telling you should run another round or you should spend half an hour more in the evening in the sauna, I think that's a different story than really having 24 hours a day a robot sitting in your home and living closely together with you. And we created a new in the moment, I think it's a little bit like a buzzword, the physical AI, to take care about the combination of mechatronics and artificial intelligence. And in this case, we are asking for regulations because we don't want to end up like Oppenheimer did 70 years ago, crying after Hiroshima, and it was too late. And therefore, it's very dangerous not to get into regulation and to make it clear that we have an ethical and legal responsibility in creating these tools, being closely together with humans.
Yes. Thomas, what
would
you...
Having to say that this is oh so European. You know what? We legislate and legislate and legislate. I have to say the biggest problem we're going to face is our lovely new European legislation on the data protection, which only causes us to do additional work, which will need some more robots to make sure that nobody messes around with our personal data, while in the personal sector, that is outside of Europe, nobody has a problem with it. Or does anybody has a problem with Facebook? Anybody having a problem with Google? Outside of Europe, I see somebody who has a problem there, but the regulations we put in place really don't help to get us friendly towards industry. I'd rather have our EU fund movies. A couple of years ago, I watched a movie on a plane, which was a Zeichentrick, a cartoon movie. Happened to be an inflatable service robot that helps injured people with kids around that program it. Hey, guess what? This is actually a Japanese invented service robot that really exists in the real world. Now, if we want to change the attitude towards our technology, we need to work with the children. They watch movies, and do you think anybody's going to be afraid of a service robot in Asia? Because they always watch those movies. So legislate later, legislate half of it, take half of the legislation away that is currently stopping us, make movies.
Okay, thank you. Jyrki, somehow I perceive that you got excited about this statement, so please.
Yes, we Europeans have a bad habit of following the laws. Because when you look at any true innovation, as they say, it's illegal because all the laws have been made for old structures, old technologies, to regulate them. So if you make something really new, it breaks the laws. That's just the way things are. And for some reasons, American startups are not so shy. They see it as another risk. In Europe, we say, oh no, we might go into prison if we launch this project. But about this, should we regulate or not? I think the most important thing is to regulate the data, as you mentioned, data regulation. Because AIs need data. We need it to educate the AIs. We need them for the basis for their decision making. And the robots, real robots, they need AIs to guide them. The trouble is that we have to make such regulation that data is as available as possible for anybody who wants to use it. And at the same time, we want to protect people's privacy, and we want to kind of prevent different kinds of misuse of the data. You all know all this example of how parents have found out that their daughter is pregnant because the algorithm in the supermarket found it out before them. But the importance of this kind of regulation is highlighted by last year's innovations on AI startups. You may have seen the statistics. 48% of that money went to Chinese startups. And it's my hypothesis. I don't have any kind of research backing this, but it's my hypothesis that in China, these startups, they trust that they have access to data much better than here in Europe, because Europe was not even listed in the statistics. US got 38%, China 48%, and the rest of the world, including Japan, Canada, India, and European Union, got 13%. We are being overrun if we are not able to build such a data regulation that allows us access to the data while doing the basic checks for protection of privacy and stuff.
Thank you. So let's then move to the academia and research end of these matters and subjects. Minna, would you like to share with us what kind of thoughts, the statements and the question as such raised in your mind?
Well, in general, it seems that the technology acceptance is highest among the most young person and the oldest persons. And then the large population in between is, at least in Europe, seems to be quite critical towards the robotics. From my perspective, if you look for the demographic profile of the European nations, you will see that we will have a lack of people and a very big lack of engineers in future. So it's not the question that do we want robotics, we actually need robotics. This might not be penetrated to the public opinion yet, but this is one of the facts what we are dealing with. If we look for who are the talents working in the field in 2030 or 2040, I would say that there's lack of them.
Yes, this comes back to my introductory comment on the study or the report that McKinsey has published last year, that there is a demographic evolution that we have to take into account, and there are technical possibilities to automate and robotize available today. How does this look from the research side? What are the topics that you are looking at, that your customers are addressing when talking to you on how to prepare for the change ahead? Marketta.
So my research concerns robots for elderly care and robots in service tasks, especially social robots in service tasks in public places. So my responses come from that perspective. And especially elderly care is the important part of it here, because the need there for new kind of ways that we can help these people, elderly people, people who are getting old and fragile. How can we help them to stay at home longer? And how can we help the care workers to give quality care to these people? And robots are the very, very potential answer here. And but we all know also that the acceptance of robots in elderly care, it's lower than the acceptance of robots in general for instance, different kind of service tasks or industry in particular. And from that point of view, what we need to do to help robots in elderly care to really to reach the potential that it has as a technology, we need to tell these people, and this is what interests elderly people, is that robots can give them autonomy, that robots will not take control of these people, that robots actually can help them in many ways, and this is what these people want. They want autonomy and control themselves. And if, for instance, if regulation is something that helps elderly people and care workers to understand that robots are something that these people can really control and use as a tool for their everyday tasks in elderly care, this really works. So in that way, for instance, regulation is really important. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We are already sort of drifting off a little bit in the direction of the second part of our discussion, which is about acceptance of robotics. And myself being sort of coming from the industrial environment and being an integrator of a company that integrates robots into industrial processes, I probably have a slightly different angle than the one that Marketa just described. If I just take a very, in my view, a very good example here from Finland on the impact of robotics. The Finns, of course, in the auditorium are well aware that we have only one automotive factory in Finland. It's a contract manufacturer manufacturing two models for Mercedes, the A-Class and the GLC. It's an automotive factory which goes back more than 30 years, has a long history, and has gone through some fairly rough times before the recent turnaround which came with the cooperation with Mercedes. This is the most robotized industrial installation in Finland. It is also about to become the largest factory in Finland in the very near future. And one could simplify this story by saying the 600 robots in that factory have created, by the end of this year, 5,000 new jobs. And if one gets this sort of thinking and this idea into the minds of people and get people to understand what the impact, the positive impact of robotics can be, then I think we have taken a good step in the direction of creating acceptance. But if we would address this, Jyrki, we discussed this a little bit before this morning. What thoughts does this spark in your mind?
Yes, the challenge is to understand that this is not a zero-sum game, but a kind of growth cycle game. And this has been true for all the industrial revolutions in our history. Let's go to the early 19th century, when actually United Kingdom almost plunged into a civil war because of industrialization. How was it solved? At that time it was solved with military power and executing all those rebels that have destroyed machines. But later on, a new kind of society formed, new kind of societal structures formed. And the key question was, were the benefits of this revolution distributed? It was not only given to those who had invested on the factories and on the autonomous machines, but also they increased salaries, they reduced working times, they cut down the prices of the products. Suddenly, the employers became consumers that were able to afford to buy these new cheap products. And the Industrial Revolution really started because there was new market, there was new consumers, no production. And that's what we should be looking into now. Not only that, we are losing 300 jobs there, or we are creating 100 jobs there. We have to see this as not as a zero-sum game, but as creating totally new social order and work markets. I hope I made any sense.
I do think so. I think we will be getting back to a question around skills, because it somehow connects all the different things that we have discussed before. So I just sort of give this as a pre-warning to Minna that we'll come back to that, so you can have a moment to think about what could be, should be said about that. Acceptance still, what obstacles do we need to overcome to create the right framework of acceptance in society?
I think we don't really have an acceptance problem, we only have a marketing problem. And also, if you want to have acceptance for something that is going to be used 40 years from now, you have to look at your schools and at your universities. You need to find programs where children want to be robot engineers, where it's much more attractive to be an engineer than an investment banker, for example. That is what creates the attractivity. And by the way, our dear nice algorithms, which you could call robots, are replacing the investment banker because they make better decisions. We had a nice crash this year, which was then played down and said, oh, this was just a robot problem of those algorithms. Now, that is where the acceptance starts. That's why education, 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 and a proper one. And then, if, as I said earlier, you have the right movies, the right video games, you will get the acceptance of our technology.
Juha.
So, I think that familiarity with technology is actually quite important. What we have learned in the context of the European Robotics Week, which takes place towards the end of the year every year, in the late autumn, what we have discovered is that it creates a lot of fascination, excitement about robotic technology. When people can actually go and visit labs, visit companies, see how this technology works, what it can do, that helps them. We have also discovered in one of our Eurobarometer surveys that those who have familiarity with robotics tend to have more positive attitudes to this technology. So familiarity breeds trust, it seems. I don't think education is alone the answer, because after all, the great majority of users of this technology, particularly in the future, will be not engineers, but people who have not engineering backgrounds. And one could even argue the other way around, that there is not necessarily so much need for engineers in the future. But that's other discussion. But I think that the familiarity aspect is, in our experience, actually something that is quite important. Of course, people then have the choice, and must have the choice, but at least it seems to be the case that sort of instills some trust.
Thank you. Bernd, if you want to continue on this
As
path.
an employee of a robot manufacturer started in the industrial robot side, I'm really tired about the discussion if the robot is killing jobs and getting the statements. On the other hand, the robot is creating new jobs and we have to have new skills and so on and so on. I think everybody knows the discussion and everybody knows the countries using a strong robot automation. They're doing very well. Acceptance means acceptance not by companies and not by business models and not by economy. Acceptance for me means by people, by humans. And to get into this area, I think we don't have a chance. Because if we take a look on the community, if we take a look on the overaging workforce and the aging society, we have to have robots supporting people because we don't have enough people taking care of the elder generation. For the young folks, it's even not a problem because a new generation is growing up being able to deal with robots already now. And in 30 or 40 years from now, I think we will have them all surrounding us. I really would like to get back to my first statement that on the software side, including at least the algorithms of the artificial intelligence, there is a lot of development work done. The missing part is the mechatronics, and we should not forget, with all the nice pictures we can draw with IoT, with artificial intelligence, that a robot still, at least in our understanding, is not only a soft bot, it's a mechanical assistive system with some kind of intelligence. I would not name it a brain, but with some software on the top. And we really have to concentrate in getting these mechanics safe, more reliable, low weight, easier to handle, easier to produce. That's the challenge for the future, and we should not forget this.
But this sounds very much like what you are calling for our extremely well-educated engineers, which are needed to do exactly that. And also this links back to what I said. Don't forget the legacy, don't forget where we are applying these new technologies that will make the leap for us. But at the core, you still have the hardware. I can't resist using an example which is very illustrative. One of the first industry leaders in Finland that started to talk about digitalization and industrial Internet of Things, Pekka Lundmark, he was the CEO of Konecranes at that time. He was then soon challenged both internally and externally if he's going to make Konecranes into a software company. So they are making industrial cranes and lifting equipment. So are you making them into a software company? And his response was, as long as there is gravity, you will need the cranes. So it's very illustrative. The cranes will have some kind of brain or intelligence, but still at the end they do exactly the same job. They are lifting from A to B. But Minna, skills, we already we're getting closer to the matter.
Okay, so I will jump to the actually continuing from the skill shortage, because after we have these new technologies which are emerging ever faster, the problem comes that our workers, engineers, they need to be learning to use these technologies. And usually the generation who develops the technology is not the ones who can profit most of the technology. How it affects the education is that relearning cycles come shorter. So we need to learn and adapt faster. It most likely will affect the universities and vocational education, that we have to start developing new forms of formal and non-formal education, that how we are supporting the short-term needs and the long-term needs. Then another thing is that how to attract the talents. So if you noticed, or you might have noticed, that we actually have school kids visiting us every session. There is a group of students or kids going around Tampere-talo. Tomorrow there might be a preschool coming to see the Muumitrolls, but actually they want to see the robots. This is some outreach activities what I challenge every one of you to do. So it is late if we start attracting the kids who are already end of their school years, considering that where they are going to apply to the university or the social science, technical science, wherever. We actually have to start attracting the younger generation and showing that when we merge the social and technical aspects, we can actually reach higher than just simply staying in one sector. So what we need in future is the more heterogeneous workers. So the stereotype engineers, they might not be needed that much. We need those who can work in the boundaries of technologies. And at the same time, we need the experts who go very deep in the levels of their field of expertise. So that means that we need quite different people working together. So that was the one comment.
Thank you, Minna. Since we are slowly running out of time, I would have one last slot for a comment, and somehow we were sort of moving closer and closer to the human being, so somehow it would seem natural that Marketa would get that slot to share with us her final thoughts on the matters discussed and where they have brought us during this half hour of improving the world.
Well, first of all, I kind of agree with one of the earlier speakers that we actually do not have an acceptance problem in the society with regard to robots. What we do have is that we have a problem, we have information problem, we have awareness problem, and we have kind of a science fiction problem also in the society, and that means that you, in the audience, you are experts of robots. Maybe you have forgotten what it's like to be when you are not an expert, and most of the people in the society, they are supposed to use the robot in some phase in their lives. For instance, these elderly people or kids in the school or teachers, and they just don't have this expertise. They don't have information. What they know about robots comes from science fiction, and that's not realistic. And that also causes negative reactions in these people, their minds to robots. One of the best ways to address this issue is what I have observed is the field trials that we do with robots. We take robots to the field just to show people that how do they behave, how you can interact with them. And what we observed when doing that is that many times the negative attitudes that people have before they come and actually try the robot, these negative attitudes after the field trial, they will turn to positive. And this has been observed many, many times with care robots, with the simple robots, with kind of social robots like Pepper or delivery robots. This is what we see. And this kind of activities we need in the society to increase the acceptance of service robots, especially in different tasks. And also with regard to elderly care, I want to add this very important problem that what elderly people fear with robots is especially that it will cause isolation and loneliness, that these robots will actually they will replace the care workers, the human touch. And this is a very important problem, ethical problem, of course. And what we need in parallel with technology development is the development of services. And this, in society, development of services and tasks and work needs to be in parallel with technology. They are not separate from each other.
Thank you. And I think this finished off the panel discussion in a very nice way, giving some challenges to the experts on challenges which are very different from pure engineering challenges. So I would like to thank the panelists very warmly for your contribution. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Before we come to the end, I would like to thank all the panelists by handing over some piece of Finnish chocolate to all of the panelists here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for the fruitful discussion. I hope that we really managed to use this half an hour to change the world, at least to change some mindsets for the future of our community and for the rest of the society. But before we close the opening, I would like to take the opportunity to also thank our moderator, Thomas Hedenborg, for this good moderation of the discussion. And last but not least, maybe some of you could imagine that there will be another forum next year. And I'm happy to announce where it will be. We have ERF 2019 in March in Bucharest in Romania, which coincides with the EU presidency at this time, also held by Romania at this time. So from the far north we go to the southeast of Europe next year, and I would like to take the opportunity to already now invite you all to go from Finland down to the other end of Europe and to have an as exciting forum as we hope to have within the next 3 days.